Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Legendarium Green Team. I'm Cesky, and today I have with me Befuddled Panda.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about the book, a new book coming out, The Garden by Nick Newman. Now, Panda, we did get an arc of this, right?
Yes, we got it from NetGalley. It comes out February 18th, which is very soon.
Very soon. So, well, if you think that it sounds good from what we talk about, then I would suggest you go buy it. And if you think that maybe you don't want to read it, then don't. But first off, Panda, just non-spoiler. Let's keep it non-spoilery here.
Uh-huh.
Did you like the story?
It was okay.
It was okay.
Was
Why do you say that? Why just okay?
Okay, first of all, this book, when we were looking at it, well, when I was looking at it on NetGalley, like the premise sounded really intriguing, right? Because it's about these two sisters and they are surviving, right? You don't really know what's happening, but you just know that they're tending to this garden and that's how they're surviving in whatever situation they're in. And then all of a sudden, right, because it's just the two of them living on this piece of land, all of a sudden it's like, oh, something is amiss. It looks like somebody else has entered their property and you don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And it's also labeled SFF. Like, this is a science fiction and fantasy, like, it's in that category, right? So I was like, "Oh, okay, this is really intriguing." A spoiler, but not really. There's really no SFF element to
There's
this.
exactly zero science fiction element to this story, unless you want to count one thing that we can maybe talk about in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, no, I feel very similar, Panda. Very similar. When I first started reading it, I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, we have these elderly sisters. It feels almost slice of life, but like weird. And I'm like, okay, I can get into this a little bit. Like, I enjoy some slice of life, right? And then it's like, oh, but there's like, we don't talk about the house. We don't talk about this. What's beyond the wall? And that's like, oh, this is like horror now. And I was like, I was leaning into it. I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. There's going to be something creepy or there's going to be something scary. And I'm not that I'm like, I love those things, but I'm just like, this is going to be so
Interesting.
Yeah. Or like confusing or tricky or like, what is it that's living in the house?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And then
because
it was
especially
like,
it's science fiction and fantasy, right? So you're
exactly.
like,
So I'm like, well,
imagination's
where's
running.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, I was like, it's going on a little horror turn. I'm all supportive of a horror turn on this instance, you know? And then it just played out and I had really good hopes going in. And then about, I don't know, like 30%, I was just like, but nothing. Like my interest level dropped. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just keep reading. And like, it got better. But like there was one thing that really like shocked me. It didn't really, but like it was meant.
Right.
Yeah, I think you know exactly.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's meant to shock you. And I was like, yeah, like I was like, this actually solves a lot of my issues with like how they survived for this long in the forest, like in this garden. And yeah, so I feel the same. I gave it a 3. I was like, the writing's really nice, the character work is really good.
Yeah.
But the plot and the intrigue, what my interest level was, just were rock bottom.
Yeah, I agree. So like, the writing is not bad.
Yeah.
The writing is actually quite good. So I agree with the like 3-star rating out of 5. And I think part of it is just maybe it's the marketing of this book is not accurate based on my experience of reading the book and what I thought going in based on the blurb. And I would say it's very character driven, right? Because you're only really in one setting for the majority of the book.
And surprisingly, you're only actually in one point of view.
Yes.
Which you're like, well, that doesn't sound weird, but like it is almost when you're reading this because you're like, you almost feel like you're getting other points of view, but you're not.
Yeah,
Just,
it's
you know
all
what I mean?
it's all in Evelyn's point of view. And honestly, it's a very small cast of characters. It
Yeah.
really, like, it's 2
Yeah,
main
it's
characters and then a third, like, supporting character and then just, like, a few ancillary
yeah, yeah,
characters.
and yeah, it's so compact.
Right.
So, who would you recommend this book to, Panda?
So as I was looking well, as I was deciding, like, what could I say about this book, I think this is more literary fiction. And so if you are somebody who enjoys literary fiction, wants a more dystopian bent, but not heavy science fiction, and
Uh,
it's very, like, narrow in the cast of characters, then potentially this would be a book for you. I was thinking if people enjoy The Road, because it seems like this gets, compared to that one, then you may enjoy it. But if you like
yeah.
more, like, the sci-fi elements, then don't expect that going in.
Yeah, I would definitely say don't expect a fiction book,
Yes.
but not a science fiction book or a fantasy book.
Right.
I agree. I think it would definitely fall more in line with like literary fiction or things that people like because how do I say that? Just like it's more about the way the story is than the story itself almost.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you like weird family dynamics, like or
Yeah.
weird like things like that, then like this would be a book for you. But
It would
yeah,
almost be like, I want to give it the label gothic horror, but it doesn't fit the
I,
gothic
or horror.
well, you could
Like
the
I
horror
don't
is a
see I
little
don't see the horror. I was never afraid for the characters. Like
uh
I was I say I wasn't, but like there were parts where I was like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. I hope this doesn't happen. But I was never like gripping the book, being like, I gotta finish reading this chapter to see
sure.
exactly what happens. I,
It
I
was
never
not that
felt
gripping,
horror,
no.
yeah, and I don't get gothic from it at all.
No,
I
okay.
just,
I
I
think it's more
mean,
the vibes, because like,
sure,
it's a very moody book.
very moody. You're right, very moody.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've non-spoilered enough. Let's just get into the meat and potatoes of this book here for a
Okay.
second here.
As much as we
Uh,
can.
as much as I can, yeah. Well, I wrote some decent notes, and I not really. I wrote some notes. So I was the whole time I was until we get the age. I was a little bit confused because I was like, they say they're really old, but
Yeah.
we see in the flashbacks that they're like 12 to 13.
Yeah.
They have you would assume maybe an acre of land in this fence that
Mhm.
this their gate that they live in, and so I'm like, there's no realistic way for two 15-year-olds to live for 50 for any reasonably long number of years.
Uh-huh.
They have I mean, minimal experience planting or whatever, right? So I was like, so maybe they're only like 18 or 19 and they just think it's been so long,
Oh.
right? So I was thinking maybe, something. But no, we get the scratches, 20,000 days, which gives them 54 and a half years
Okay.
living in this
At least
thing.
you did the math.
Oh, I
I did
did.
not bother.
Starting at a 12-year-old, starting at 12-year-old, Evelyn
Okay.
is the oldest factual age we have for her.
Right, okay.
So that puts them at 66 years old at the end of this
Okay.
book. And I was like, or the the book, and I'm like, okay, that makes it more. I don't know. What non? I don't. It's just so weird. Such a weird book. Like, I don't know. What
What
do you
is
want to talk about, Panda?
what is the weirdest part
The
to you?
weirdest part. It was all about theme, and I don't think he gave enough consideration for like the smaller details,
Okay.
which threw me off and threw me out of the story. So like, you've got a 15-year-old or a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. So when their mom dies, or I don't know how old they are when a mom dies, but like, and then I'm supposed to expect that they lived in a 1 acre plot with like 6 beehives and a garden
They're
for
very
50 years.
self-sufficient.
How You can't tell me that 15, like even 20-year-olds would be good enough and smart enough to plant,
Chesky,
hold it all in. No, I'm sorry. It was tough.
this is where the fantasy element comes in, okay?
This is the only fantasy element here. I was like, there's no way they survived on like food that they're gardening, especially as they get older and their gardening ability goes down.
Yeah.
Right? And there was that little bit of fantasy element where they're like, at the beginning, like in one of the flashbacks, we see them doing a song to the trees. And, if you sing really well, the trees will produce more. And so I was like,
Right.
okay, this is a fantasy thing. Like this is going to be some weird thing. And then I thought, well, maybe they're fae and they don't want people because they're fae. And that's why this person who gets in can't understand them. Like my mind was working way overdrive on like cool
You were
connections
trying to make the elements fit.
that didn't work for me. Right. And then I was like, what was the other thing I was just so disappointed in? I don't know what it was. It was just like the trees. And then I was like, the house is scary. And they're like, oh, there's a thing in the house. And we don't go in the rest of the house. And then it was really let down for me when it's like, oh, the mom just boarded up the house because she was so mad at the dad. And like killed the dad, left him in there. And then like, I don't know. It was like I was saying, it was all about themes and not about the small pieces. And those just threw me out because I was like, I just don't. It didn't. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, okay. What are the themes, right? Because and there is a conflict going on. So, because we're in spoiler territory, basically the like sci-fi element of this is the whatever climate disaster or crisis they're living through.
The storm.
And well, yeah, but it's also because the storytelling, right? There are a lot of flashbacks, and we get pieces of information based on those flashbacks. And what I've pieced together is, okay, at some point, right? There's a climate disaster happening, and because Evelyn and Lily's family, they have this plot of land, right? They start taking in people into their homes, building this community where people are it's almost like a commune, right? Where they're all planting and like surviving together. But at some point, people started leaving and, we don't know where they went. We don't know exactly what happened. And the parents, the mother and the father basically had this argument. Do they stay? Do they leave? The father is in favor of staying. The mother wants to leave, but then they flip at some point because the father honestly is a piece of crap. Like he did nothing to really help.
I have to wonder if that was just written this way because our main character is Eve or is Evelyn.
Like,
before
is
we
she
go
a reliable narrator or not?
Maybe he was doing stuff, and I don't believe near the end he was because he seemed like he wasn't. But maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know.
Fair.
But we should probably just tell what the actual story is about with spoilers.
Yeah.
I give a quick 2-sentence summary, basically. Evelyn and Lily live alone. Evelyn's the hardworking one. Lily's the flighty one. One day a boy gets in their fence. Lily wants to kill him. Evelyn keeps him alive. Then they flip-flop and Lily and the boy grow close. Evelyn gets really distrustful. They fight a lot. Lily and the boy leave. Lily and the boy come back. People from outside come. Lily dies. Evelyn gets taken away by the boy to the ocean, which was like super close, by the way. You didn't know it, but it was super close.
It was close enough that he could pull her and a bunch of shit there.
Yeah.
Crap there. Okay. Yeah. So like the theme, right? It's basically you get to this point where you understand, okay, like why they are in the situation that they're in. And it's basically do they just continue doing things as their mother has set up and has dictated and has trained them to do, or do they adapt because the situation is no longer the same?
Yeah.
Right.
No, my main like conflict / theme was like change or stay the same.
Right.
But what are you gonna pick?
Also, generational trauma.
Like I have to agree with that, right? Like And like for as much as Evelyn ended up being just like her mom, I know a woman. She is like her mom to a T. Like you
Yeah.
give them a test and they'll score the exact same every time because they're just
Wow.
like they are so in sync, even though they're not like
The
with
same
each other.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. So I totally could see it coming just exactly like it happened. So yeah, it was. It's a very character driven story, and for me, being a man in his mid 30s ish, I didn't connect as well with the characters here.
No?
No, I mean, I did with Evelyn because she's the oldest and I'm the oldest. And
Yeah,
kind of
same.
having that mentality where it's just like, no, I do things that you don't even know about, or I
Right.
get in trouble for things you don't even understand, and like you just are I keep things running and you just play kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
attitude, and that made sense to me, and I liked that, and the division that put between the two characters, like fighting, like when her mom almost gets kidnapped and she
Mhm.
shoots them with the shotgun, like that was like, oh wow, that was like an interesting scene. Like we're getting this. I mean, yeah, it was it was a scene. So
It was a scene, which later does become more meaningful too,
yeah,
which we alluded to, the twist.
yeah. When it happened, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like it was like, this explains why the icebox still has meat in it after 55 years.
Yes, they were eating people.
Yeah, it's cannibals.
Yeah.
Now, I guess I can understand the boys' reaction, but at the same time, I'm like, mega storm outside, really nice cannibals that just like literally said they're not going to eat me at this exact moment. So, like, mega death storm, stay with the cannibals. I mean, I think I know what I would do, but he made his choice. What about you, Panda?
Would you
Would
would
you
you
stay
s
inside, or would you
I
go
was
into the death storm? Supposedly, it's
you
more
know,
like a
for
big
how
death
much
storm.
yeah, for how much they, like, talk up the storm, it didn't turn out to be that scary.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like it was a lot of forced scariness when we're
Yeah.
seeing it from perspective, but like when like oh, it's just dusty. I mean, the Dust Bowl was
Well,
bad. Don't get me wrong.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
dust
there's a lot
'cause
of
it's
dust, and don't get me wrong. It's not like oh, it's easy, but like it's not like in our minds it was built up to be something huge,
yeah.
and it's
I I
just like oh,
thought
it's a storm.
I thought the storm would have more impact than it did.
Yeah. Okay, here's one thing. How would you feel if I say that this book was partially about like Evelyn and Lily, they were all about following traditions without like understanding the reason behind the traditions,
Yes, I would agree.
right? Okay. That's all. I was just like cuz that's what it felt like. They were following the rote. They were doing the rote by the almanac. And that was one other thing that made me think it was going to be more fantasy where they were like, "Oh, the almanac isn't right anymore." It
Mhm,
doesn't like the seasons are changing too fast and things
mhm.
are happening out of order. And I was like, oh, so fantasy, like weird stuff going on. No, it's just weather.
No, it's more like reality.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like weather changes after 50 years. Like it's different.
Yeah.
So, that was. I like the flashbacks. How do you like the flashbacks of this book as a narrative structure?
You know, this book wasn't that long. It's, like, about 300 pages,
Yeah.
but it read really slowly, and I think that is intentional. I do think that the flashbacks contributed to how slowly I read the book because, first of all, you're at the beginning of the book, you're just thrown into the story, like, in the middle, what's happening.
Yeah.
And then when you get the flashbacks, they're also like they're not very descriptive about the world or like they're just like small moments in time.
Hmm.
And because you're only seeing it also through Evelyn's eyes, you only see and understand what she sees and understands. And so when she's a kid, right? Like,
Hmm.
she doesn't really understand all that's happening and all the context. So you as a reader, you don't get all the context either.
Hmm.
And it's not until, like, she gets older and notices more and starts putting pieces together a bit more, then you as a reader get those pieces as well. But also, I think for her, she at least to me, it seems like she was also suppressing, like, she probably
Hmm.
understood more than she was, allowing herself to,
Well,
and so that's the experience you get as the reader as well.
I would think that that leads back to the relationship with the mom, who was very overbearing, over controlling near the end.
Yeah.
That suppression of like things. But yeah, I kind of liked them because it was like a break and it was slightly more illuminating with a little bit more work as to what was actually going on in the world.
Yeah.
Because the parts when they're old, it's just this is the way it is. Like, did you know what happened here? Like, but the flashbacks are kind of more of a you get a more I don't know, you almost get more of a story or more of a real plot. Like, oh, there's people here now.
Yeah, yeah,
There's no
yeah.
people. Like, why are they fighting now? Oh, the mom is the one that crashed the car because the dad went off and got food, and then the mom crashed the car, locked the gate, and threw the keys away, so nobody could leave.
Right.
Right? I was like, oh, this is like that was where I was like, oh, this is like the mom is taking a turn in my opinion versus like the actual story. I'm just like, you know, she's just their figure, their mom, their
Right. She's not a
person to
saint.
go to. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I'm looking at my list of questions here and I'm just like, well, these are all things we've kind of talked about. Like, did you think the characters were good? Yeah, I think we both agree the characters were pretty well written, very believable.
I think the main character, because I mean that's all we get is their perspective, is yes,
Hmm.
is believable and well-rounded, but then the rest are just they kind of are there to serve, whatever the author. Yeah. I do think that Evelyn and Lily, they are foils for each other. Right, because Evelyn is quite the rigid, structured, rule-following character, and
Hmm.
then Lily is free-spirited, the more erratic, impulsive kind of character, more childlike,
Sure.
and we see, why, because growing up, like, oftentimes the mother or Evelyn would shelter her, and it's like, "Oh, she's the young one," you know, "We don't
Yeah.
want her to experience or know what's going on." But in
Keep her
reality,
safe.
yeah, in reality, Lily actually, knows more than they think she does, and she just has a different way of coping, like with her dancing.
Yeah, I was a little sad that we didn't get to finish the dancing scene because I'm like, you built up to this dancing scene the whole time. She's always practicing.
Yeah.
Like you have her start it and then you have her stop it because the people
The
showed up
storm.
and like yeah, in the
It was
storm. Like,
because of the
couldn't we
storm.
just it was,
Yeah.
you're right. And then I'm like, could we just like finish it and then the storm happens? But I mean it makes narrative and like stylistic more sense, I feel like, to have it actually cut off and then for her to die and stuff. But like, I don't know. It didn't really I
I think
missed it.
it's maybe my main qualm is I didn't really feel like the stakes were that high or they really mattered. I mean, I was curious about, hey, because Evelyn finds the cell phone, right, that the
Yeah.
boy had, and she turns it on, and the boy later on is like, "Oh no, they'll be able to track me." Right. So that's when there's more of a stake. It's like, okay, what's going to happen? Right. Are they going to like have a standoff? Are they going to like fight and resist
Yeah.
and protect
Mhm.
their home? Or are they going to run away? Right. What's going to happen
Mhm.
then? That was, like, the most intriguing part, because like, the part where they find the boy, which you could count as a conflict in the story,
Mhm.
that was, like I mean, I didn't think they were gonna kill him. I thought they
Right.
were just gonna, like, integrate him into, their little rituals and family and their little and survive together, and he would, like, inherit the
Yeah.
land and keep that going. I was also, like, weary that there might become, like, some sort of romantic element, and I was
Well,
like
that's when I was thinking, well, maybe they're not actually as old as they think they are. Well, because it
Yeah,
doesn't tell you. It never flat out says like it says they're
until
elderly,
towards the end, yeah.
but that's all from her perspective, and so you think, oh, maybe not, but no, it
Right.
is for sure.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's, I'm really glad it did not go that
yes,
romance route, because that
that
would've
would have
been
been
really weird.
yeah. What would you say was like? Would you say just that the cell phone and the people coming was the highest stakes for you? Or was there anything else that you felt really kind of had like I don't know, like
I think
what made
that
you feel
was
the most?
yeah, and then when there were the 2 people who actually did arrive,
Hmm.
which, like, did they just walk in the storm this whole time?
It was very
because they
soon after the storm, so I
yeah.
was like, well, I mean, these are like small things, but like a lot of small things can build up and kind of kick you out of a story. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't throw my cell phone in a lake, even though it says it's water resistant, because I
Oh,
know it's not that water resistant.
well,
You know what I mean?
she didn't want it, right? She wanted to destroy it.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. She threw it in the lake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you throw a cell phone in the lake, it's not going to transmit a signal after it, electrocutes itself.
Yeah, but she didn't mean to. Oh, you're talking about, like,
I'm
how
talking
they
about
were
the
able to
signal,
track.
yeah. I'm talking about how they were able to track it because I'm like, you
Yeah.
throw, yeah, I mean, it was like a minor thing, but I was like, oh, so the phone's dead because it's
Well,
in the lake. And so I was like, oh, so I'm
also,
not worried about it because it's,
like, I sent you a review,
yeah, I read that.
and they did mention in the review, I think that's published in Locust Magazine, like, by this time, the cell towers wouldn't have been working and everything, like, the degradation of
Sure,
civilization. So, there were some parts that were just like, "Okay, this doesn't fit what you've already set up," and the cell phone is one of those things. But I think what is the least believable part for me is when the 2 outsiders come to the house and they start, like, basically looting the
uh-huh,
home.
yep.
Right? And somehow Evelyn being, like, this creaky old lady in her 60s,
66-year-old
I
woman.
guess.
Like,
Yeah, was able to just slither through the house. Like, she was making noise,
yeah,
and she had a lamp, so it's not like she was really that stealthy, but she was
yeah.
able to evade them for the most part
Hmm.
and then run away, and then, eventually the 2 of them, she reunites with the boy, and then they, you know,
Yeah.
are able
No,
to escape.
I agree, and I also felt that scene was just a little weird, where they're putting her on the stretcher gurney kind of thing, and they're just like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay, and you could tell she's like freaking out and trying to get them to stop. And I'm like, people coming in for a supposed rescue, even if they're looters, they're not gonna want to bring a 66-year-old woman forcibly back to camp with them, right? Like that's
Well,
a
they
drain
did
on.
try.
Though they tried, that's what I'm saying. But that's like a
Yeah,
drain on their resources. It's a
sure.
hassle to get her back. But they didn't like actually spend any time trying to actually talk to her and
Oh,
be like, "Hey,
yeah.
what's your name? How come you're living here?" It was just, "It's
Yeah, yeah,
okay. We're
yeah.
gonna get you out of here," as
Right,
if
right,
the
right.
house was haunted or something. But again, it's we know it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was this weird like, "We're gonna get you out," but there was no like, "Hey, let's
There was no
actually just."
finesse.
Yeah. There's like, "Hey, who are you? How are you thinking?" Like, here's a
Poor
this is
bedside
a
manner.
this is a quote from the Locust magazine. He says, talking about like the cell phone and stuff. He's like, pretty clear that Newman is less concerned with such sci-fi, science fictional consistencies as with the exploration of the vulnerable and quite affecting
Yeah.
characters. And I'm like, yeah, that totally fits. Like his story is all about the characters, and it's he doesn't care about the other stuff. It just fits the story.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah. You don't know anything else about the world, like, is there even a government? Like, what's the population that's surviving? Like, is the climate disaster getting better or worse? Like, you know
You don't
nothing.
know. Yeah. So, what genre is it then, Panda?
I think it's literary fiction.
Just literary fiction? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I was like I said, I went through a couple thoughts, and then I think I have to end up with you on literary fiction or just fiction in general. So let's
I mean, the
see.
writing is, like,
It is
is good.
literary, so like
Yeah.
I guess I do have to give it that. Sorry, I really tried to like this book, everybody. Like I went in with
And Chesky likes
and
almost
I love
everything he
books. Yeah, I
reads.
do. I went in with like I'm gonna try and like this. Usually that's a good sign. I'm gonna like it a lot more. Unfortunately for me, you kind of have to have like at least 3% fantasy or science fiction in your story. I do not enjoy plain straight fiction
Yeah.
at all. So, that's why I had so many crazy theories the whole book. And then,
Yeah.
one by one, they were like taken out to the shed and shot. And I was like, well, darn it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry that I
No,
made you read this with me.
it's a good experience. You can't
Yeah,
love everything, no matter how much you try. But, for others who are not me, they might like it more.
that's true.
Well, I think we've pretty much hit on everything that we really wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we missed?
No.
What was the biggest twist? Biggest twist for you?
The biggest twist, I guess at the time it would have been like, "Oh yeah, that's an arm that they've been eating."
Yeah. That one did not land for me either. I was like, oh, of course. Like, I know it's supposed to be like a reveal, but I was like, that makes sense. Like, I think the biggest twist is just like that the mom locked them in and that the mom killed the
Mm,
dad. Like, the revelations about the mom were the bigger twists for me because everything else was like, normal. Makes sense. Like, it happened. But the mom, the whole story is built up as like good, good, good. And then like two flashbacks in a row, it's like bad,
yeah.
worse. So,
Alright.
well, everybody, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our review of The Garden by Nick Newman, coming out on February 18th, 2025. You can join us on the Legendarium Discord server to talk about it with us or tell us if you really liked it. And if you did, we're glad to hear why. Thanks. We have to give our thanks to Craig and the Legendarium and Horizon Brave for starting the green team. The intro and outro music is Galactic Damages by Jingle Punks. Thanks, Panda, so much for being here with me.
Thank you.
I could not have reviewed this book alone for sure.
Me neither.
Yeah. I am Cesky. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.